I'm from the University of Nagasaki in Sasebo, Japan. That's southwestern Japan. And I first came to Japan about 10 or 11 years ago as an English teacher. Prior to that, I hail from Boston, Massachusetts, the United States. I enjoy being an English teacher over here. It's a lot of fun, and I get a thrill out of helping the Japanese students study English. And while I was living in Boston, my background was computer science. That's my major. So I started blending English language learning with computer technology, and Moodle just came into the picture about 3-4 years ago, and been using it ever since. So today I'm going to talk about migration tips. Some people are still on version 1.9 and they want to go to 2.2. I did that here at the University of Nagasaki about 3 or 4 months ago. We went live with version 2. We're on version 2.2 now, and it's running great. There were some learning curves in that process, and I'm going to share some of the things I learned during my research on migrating. So I hope this will be helpful to you. I see we just have a few people today, which is this is the second time I'm doing this presentation, so that might explain why, but hopefully I can be a little smoother than I was the first time. So I never did an online presentation until this past weekend. So I see out of the people who've registered, we've got one with a small number of courses, and everybody else has over 100 courses on their site, so that's pretty good. My experience is with a small site as well. Our site here at the University of Nagasaki has about 30 courses, so it's not very big. So once again, this is my experience is based on migrating a small site. For larger sites, there's going to be some other things that you'd probably have to learn in addition to what I'll tell you today, but I'm sure I can guide you in the right direction. Okay, all right, so welcome everybody. I'm going to switch over to the presenting view. I have another question. I just want to figure out where everybody is in Moodle. I've got a questionnaire here, just checking where everyone is on the what version of Moodle are you running now? And I noticed I haven't put everybody's on everybody seems to be on the latest. Okay, one person's already migrated and 2 people are on the latest 1.9. Okay, that's good to know. As you'll see later in my talk, it's important to be on the latest 1.9 when you're planning the migration to version 2, because there are some coding changes they've made that make migration smoother when you go up to version 2 from 1.9, if you have the latest 1.9. If you have an earlier version of 1.9, before you migrate to version 2, you'd probably want to plan to get up to the latest version of 1.9. Okay, good. So most people are there already, so that's good. Okay. All right. Let me just get on with the talk here. I may ask some other questions later, but let's just see. If you have anything you want to chime in with, go ahead. I'll be happy to try to steer the presentation where everybody wants it to go, if need be. Okay. All right. The first and foremost message I'll send across is, people probably know this already, you must test your migration first. You can't just go for it live. It's way too risky, especially if you're dealing with production level data and you have important courses and student data. Don't make a mistake of going for it on your production site. That's a big no-no. And I was very cautious not to do that. I'm just putting it out as a disclaimer. If you watch this presentation and then you try to go for it, don't say I didn't warn you not to do that, okay? And what I'll talk about. There's two kinds of upgrades, and I'm learning as I go here. I learned some things from some of the other participants on Saturday's presentation, but I'll talk about two kinds of upgrades. I personally researched doing a browser-based upgrade, and when you upgrade your Moodle in a browser, you know, there are things to be aware of. I recommend a good solid browser like Mozilla Firefox or Safari. Probably Internet Explorer, the latest version is okay. While I was testing, Google Chrome has come a long way since then, but I did have some issues. In particular, there was some Google was forcing some timeouts on long processes, which I think was a bug or the way they designed their browser, but may or may not be addressed by now. So just be aware, if you're doing the browser-based upgrade, make sure you have a good solid browser to use. And then there's command line upgrade, which you can study on the Moodle.org website. I don't know a lot about that because I never did it, but people brought it up in the last talk, so I just thought I'd give it a quick mention. The one thing in my brief study of it, it said when you use the command line upgrade, you need to make sure you put your site in maintenance mode by yourself, because the browser one apparently puts itself in maintenance mode, but the command line one doesn't, apparently. Okay, that may or may not have changed, I'm not sure. So there's two kinds. There's the browser kind and then the command line. Probably if you have a really big site with hundreds and hundreds of courses, you might want to study this option more. Okay, I didn't because I only had 30 courses in my site. Okay, all right, there's two kinds of migration I'm going to talk about today. The first one is called a full site migration. And the benefits of doing the full site migration is you get to keep all your data and your settings. And the second type of migration I'm going to talk about is doing courses one at a time, and that is a different kind. I'll talk about that later, but there are some benefits and some drawbacks to that as well. So let's go on with it. Let's go on with it. Everybody okay? Is everybody hearing me? Anne, are you able to hear me? Just checking. And Paula, it's okay? All right, good. All right. Might go along quickly, but jump in with questions if you have anything. Don't hesitate to interrupt me because I might start blathering on here. Okay. Here's what I had for us for my test server. Remember, I mentioned you should test. You must test. Here's what I did. I left my production server alone. I didn't use that at all. And what I did, because my production server was an earlier version of 1.9, and I wasn't even sure if I could upgrade to the latest version of 1.9 when I first started researching. So I just left that alone, and I created two new Moodle installations. Okay, the first one was a new version of 1.9, and the second one was version 2.2. So the migration I'll deal with today is using version 2.2, and I just kind of created them in convenient parallel directories on my server. I'm not sure how many of you guys are admins. Is there any admins in the audience, or are you guys teachers, administrators? Just chime in what you are so I know what level I should talk here. Okay, Andrew's both, Daniel's a teacher, Paul is kind of an admin. Okay, so if I say something that doesn't make sense, just once again jump in. Okay, so I used on my test server, I used a Linux server. I used Ubuntu Linux. I like Ubuntu because it's simple to install and it's pretty easy to use, and putting a web server on there is easy, and I can understand how to make virtual hosts very simply in Ubuntu. So therefore I could create two URLs, the 1.9 and 2.2. And I had parallel software directories. Now, has anyone heard of Git as a source code control system? Have you guys heard of that? Do you guys use it? Anybody? Git as a source code control? Anyone? Okay, nobody's saying anything, so I'm guessing. Okay. If you study on Moodle's website, there's a lot of ways to install Moodle, and one of them is through Git, which is the direct access to the source code. And it sounds scary, but it's really not that bad. And let me see if I can just search up the, I'll search up the link for that, just a sec, and send it to you. But I installed using Git because when I was testing, they were doing a lot of development about 4 or 5 months ago. They were doing a lot of development on the 1.9 to 2.2 conversions, and there were changes coming in weekly. And by installing Git, using Git instead of using the zip file that you can download, I was actually able to keep up to date with the changes a lot quicker. And I'll send you. Hold on, I'm just okay. I got the link right here. Just gonna copy that for you. I don't know how hard it is. Let's see. That's a way long link, but I don't know if it. I don't know why that link is so long. Probably because I searched it or something. Hold on. Yeah, that'll take you there if you click on it. That'll explain how to install using Git. It's a little bit challenging to learn at first, but the good thing about having it, like I said, is okay, you're testing, you find a bug in what's in the migration process, and you can look it up, you can find out if it gets fixed, and then you can update your software pretty quickly. There's no reason that you have to use Git. I just used it because it was easier. So if downloading zip files and installing them is okay for you, that's okay too. It doesn't matter. But you want to be able to easily update these software directories in case there are changes. Lately, I think things have stabilized quite well, so I think you probably won't have to do that much updating if you're trying to test your migration now, so or during the summer or something during downtime. Okay, I also had two data directories, one for the 1.9 data and one for the 2.2 data. And let me explain a little bit more about my setup. When I made the 1.9 installation, I actually copied my live site's data over so that I could try upgrading to 1.9's latest and see if that would work okay. That was the first step I did, and I'm not going to really cover that, but just assume that the 1.9 is a copy of my live 1.9 site. So if your live 1.9 site is the latest version of 1.9 Moodle, you don't actually need that. You just need the 2.2 development copy. Okay? Everybody all right with that? All right. I put some commands in here. If you're using Linux, you can use some of these commands I used. One of the things that was beneficial was knowing how to preserve the ownership of the data directory. So I showed how to copy the 1.9 data directory over to 2.2, and of course, obviously, make sure you have enough disk space to test. I have an old kind of server, so I had to make sure I had enough disk, which I did. I was lucky. All right. Once again, I'm doing a browser-based kind of migration here, so you want to make sure that the php.ini settings are up to the task for your migration. And now this is kind of a tricky area here, because I think it depends on how much, how many courses you have and how long it's going to take for the script to execute on your system. And so it's hard to tell you exactly what to set these values to, but you may have to adjust them from their default settings right now. Right now you have these values are set, but you may have to increase the value. Okay, good. Thanks. Great. Depending on your specific needs, while you're testing, if you get a timeout or you have the script stopping in the middle and you can't figure out what's going on, and you're not getting the proper error message or something, you can't tell exactly what the problem is, you might want to increase the values of these three variables. I had to increase the value on my test server because my test server was somewhat old and slow. Okay, if you have a nice modern fast server that processes PHP pretty quickly, maybe you don't have that issue. Okay, but just be aware that you might have to check it. Okay. And then for the testing, it's pretty straightforward. You need two databases. You need your 1.9 copy and your 2.2 copy. I just set it up this way. I made a copy of my production data into my development data, I called it, and then I duplicated that into the 2.2 development data, and I just had one user with the privileges for both databases. So the Moodle user has the ability to access both of those databases, and I used phpMyAdmin to set that up, except for the database copy step, which I don't recommend copying a large database using phpMyAdmin because that usually times out. So I gave an example how to dump a database on the command line and then import that database into a new database. So this is essentially a copy that you can see. Okay, so the first command, MySQL dump, dumps the 1.9 development database into a file, and the second command takes that file and imports it into a new 2.2 development database. Okay, everybody all right with that? I'm kind of going a little bit quickly here, but I don't want to make anyone sleepy. So, all right, any questions on that? All right, nope. Okay, I'll keep going. All right, now the next step is pretty straightforward. Just in your 2.2 software directory, just point the config.php to your database and your make sure it's the right URL and the development directory for the data, and launch the browser. Okay, and that's basically it. And I'm going to demonstrate that right now. If I can stop sharing this screen, and I will share my desktop. Just a moment. Okay. 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 Can everyone see my desktop at the moment? Just if you can see it, let me know. Okay. Daniel says yes, and Paula says yes. Okay. So this is just a shot of my 1.9 development site. It doesn't have many courses in it. You know, I can see I'm an English teacher, so I have English courses. This is one of my textbooks I use with Pearson Longman, and it has a bunch of activities and some listening activities and some quizzes and things. And I'll just show you that things are working in here right now. So if I play one of the audio files, it plays. You can see the images and stuff. So this is your standard 1.9 looking course. There's a quiz that I used. This particular quiz, I used one of those customized mods, drag and drop matching and drag and drop ordering questions, and I just students listen to the fashion show and put this people in order. Okay, so it's your basic EFL practice blended learning classroom stuff, and I'm just showing you that to show you that it's a working site. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to switch over here. I don't know if this window's viewable. I hope you can see it. This background's probably not pretty, but I'm going to view the config.php file on the server, and here I have the database. And since I'm testing, I often change these database names. In my presentation it says dev, but just for the special iMoot I changed the name of it to iMoot, so I'm showing you that I'm actually changing values in here. So my database is called Moodle 2.2 iMoot. My data directory is called varlib www Moodle 2.2 iMoot, and I've got the URL. It's moodle2.2.taltom.com. I'm going to save that. I don't know. Justin, is that background any better? I hope it's better. Last time people said they couldn't see it, but I save it and I come over to my browser. I click a window and I open up my my 2.2 URL, and I get the system detecting. It says right here that it's detected I'm on 1.9.18 plus, and I'm going to go to 2.2.3 plus. So I'm going to go from the latest 1.9 to the latest 2.2, and I'm going to do that now. And I think it should take less than 5 minutes to finish on my server because it's not very big. So don't fret that you're going to be sitting here for hours. But if you have a large installation, it could take a long time. And I'll talk about my my real migration after I get through this demo here. So it's just, once again, the system checks to make sure you have all the required necessary levels of things. It's pretty good at telling you if you don't have the right things. There are different challenges you can run into. For example, if your database isn't quite in the right format, doesn't have the Unicode encoding, you know, that can it'll complain about stuff like that. And those things are all fixable things. They're not things that made it so I couldn't migrate. They were things I could fix. Okay, so I'm just going to let that go. Oops, sorry. One last thing. It gives me a last chance view at what's going to be installed and what's missing from disk. And now I'll explain this missing from disk stuff a little bit in a minute, because I want to talk about plugins and add-ons and customizations. So I'm going to talk about that, but I'll just kick off this migration and then we can talk about those things. So it gives me the big long list of things that's going to be installed, and it does take a little bit of time. So away we go. Click on the upgrade button, and there it goes. It starts doing it has to do some data field conversions, and then it does a bunch of other things, and I'll come back to this screen and show you some of those things in a minute, okay? But just trust that it's running the background on my desktop, and I'm going to go back to just talking with you guys. Let's see if I can get my it's supposed to come back on the same page, presentation. Okay, good. So that's going on in the process, and I'm just going to talk about, while that's going on, I'm going to talk about some of the customizations that you have to be aware of. Let me see. I've got a question for you. How many people in the presentation have a 1.9 with a lot of customizations? I mean, do you have a lot of custom plugins or modules? Okay, Daniel says yes. Paula says yes. Okay, and Natalie says just a few, and Anne says no customizations. Okay, of course, if you have few or no customizations, you're in better position. If you have must-have customizations, you probably have to make sure that your 2.2 site has working copies of those before you attempt a migration. And a few. Okay, Andrew says he's got a few blocks. Well, and now that's a good question. Customizations, yes. If you have core code changes, that's even more serious. If you don't have core code changes, that's very good. But what I mean is like added on blocks or custom modules that are written just for your Moodle, or things like added question types. I particularly used drag and drop matching. I used ordering questions. I also used the attendance block. That was one of the blocks I used. And I was interested in the book module. So, before I could fully migrate my site, I had to make sure I had working copies of those those Moodle customizations working in both my test servers. And that was tricky. Is there an easy way to check? Well, you have to look in the plugins for your 1.9 and see what you're using, and then compare that with your 2.2 test site and see if you've got those same plugins. If you don't, then you have to add on, try to find the software and install it and test. I mean, it would be in your system administrative settings for the most part, I think. Does that answer your question, Anne? Is that okay? There was some programming had to be done for one of my tests, because originally when I started trying to do the migrations, the drag and drop matching questions were not coming over. They were failing during the migration. So some code changes had to be done for that. And luckily, I have some friends who do PHP coding, and I knew how to do a little bit myself, and I could help make the changes. That's the great thing about open source. So if you do have things that need changing, you need to start researching what those are. If you know that, oh, we can't live without this plugin and it doesn't exist in 2.2 yet, that's going to be a blocking factor for you until you can get that taken care of. The other thing that migrating gives you a really good chance to do, and my slide on this seems to be missing, but it gives you a chance to pare down your Moodle. If you did have a lot of customizations and you tried out a lot of things on 1.9 and that was fun, but we only used it once, and these other things are kind of interesting, but we don't really use them. It gives you a chance to kind of make your Moodle a little bit cleaner and not have so many customizations in there. Because I know when I first started using Moodle, I was like, oh, I want to try this, I want to try that, and I got all these things installed, and then I tried them once, and okay, that was the end of that. It didn't work well in class, or I didn't like it, or it had a problem. So my best advice in that case is, if you really don't need it, don't bring it. If you really can live without it, try to go with your least common denominator approach if you can. Okay, I'm just going to check in, looking at my desktop here to see how that migration's going. Okay, and it's going right along. It's almost done. I'm going to switch back to that and show it to you. Okay. All right, I'm going back for the screen share. Pipe up if you can't see it, okay? Okay, I'm just gonna scroll up the big long screen here and just show you. We started off migrating some fields, and then there was a number of data types, and then you can see it migrates all the questions. Then there was book migration, and then quiz attempts get migrated, okay? It does a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, you can see this process is really long, and this is a good thing because I see a lot of successes. And if you get errors, usually it will stop on the mod that you're having an error in, and that's very useful to know. So if it stops at, workshop or something, then it would have trouble with that particular mod. So my particular plugins, it stopped right at the drag and drop matching question, so I knew that was the problem, and that helped me out. So I just click continue here, and we're nearly done. Oops, I had to log in one more time. Okay. Yes, if you got that far, it seems to be working. If you've made it down to the continue button, you're pretty much through. And of course, now you're gifted all the settings that the new settings for 2.2 that weren't in 1.9, and you just have to kind of page down through them. You can go back and change them later, or you can scan through them slowly and change them as you go if you want, and then just one save at the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to do save just to show you, and I think it should bring me up to my my 1.9 site. Now, there's something you see here. I come up. This is my migrated 1.9 site. You can see it still says version 1.9 here, but it's actually on 2.2 now, because I've got it here. It says Moodle 2.2.3, and it's giving me a warning about the database tables using this my ISAM database engine. And for 2.2, they recommend that you use this ACID compliant engine. And to be honest, I haven't studied the details of what that exactly means. But luckily for us, I don't need to study it too much because Moodle's provided a tool for me. So if I go to tool INNODB, and it'll come up with the automatic conversion tool for that. And I have a link to that in my presentation, so don't worry, I'll teach you what that link is, and you can make a note of it. Okay, so you just run that. It says, be patient, wait for it to complete, and it will go down and convert all the tables to the new database engine, the ACID compliant database engine type. Okay. Okay. So it's the benefits of having a really slow testing server like mine, is that you have to wait. If you have a really nimble, fast machine, I think my test server is quite old. All right, so then I continue that. And then, of course, there's the famous, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the replace.php command in Moodle. If you are, that's one of the tools that has been also included in 2.2, but it's a little different place, and you have to go in there and change your URL. In my case, my URL changed from Moodle 1.9 to Moodle 2.2. That's before I can get anything to work, basically. You know, if your URL's not changing, you don't have to do that, of course, if you're testing a site. And when you finally go live, you don't have to run that stuff. This is just for the test. Okay, so that's done. Okay. All right, and then I come back to my home page, and of course it looks a little bit different, but I'll just show you real quickly that my my courses have migrated. I'm now on 2.2, and let's take a look at one of those listening things that we played before. Okay. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's playing for me. And let's see, I'll go back and check out the drag and drop, the ordering question quiz. Take a look at that, see if that migrated. Okay, so there it is. All right, and it seems to be working okay, and I can play the questions. Okay. And so there we have it. So there's the old site and there's the new site right next to it. So I tested, you know, I'll start to test and go through different things and make sure that they're all working. And that's part of the testing process. And I think when I was testing, I ended up running, I don't know, 20 or 30, maybe not that many, 20 tests before I did my live test. So I'm going to go back to my presentation now. Yeah. Oh, Okay, I see. Now I see the chat. The chat wasn't showing for me. Natalie's got as far as the workshop, and so you're almost there. Yeah, if you got as far as workshop, you're almost there. All right. Maybe I can talk with you offline or later at the end about it, and I can see if I can help you get through that problem. I don't know what the problem would be, but maybe we can put our heads together and come up with a solution for it. Okay, I'm just going to go on a slide here. Here's the last two things I did: the change the URL and the my ISAM table conversion. Okay, there are links here. Of course, I used my own URL in there. You'd have to use your URL. I don't know, are you guys familiar with replace.php? It's kind of that hidden command that was in 1.9 that people use to change their URL if they copied their site to somewhere. That's what you use to know. It's probably better not to play around with it, because if you start messing with it, you might think of it as a global search and replace for Moodle, which it's not supposed to be. It's just supposed to be for changing the URL of things. Okay. All right. I'm gonna. Okay. Well, in 2.2, this is the link to those tools, but in 1.9, the link's a little bit different. I think it's admin/replace.php or something. So it's a little bit different, but I'm sure you could look it up on Moodle.org. I probably shouldn't teach you too much about it, because you might do some damage to your site with it. So be careful. Don't tell them I told you about it. That's true. It could, Justin, you're right. It could replace broken links, and I've used it for that. Okay, don't forget the post-migration testing. Just because it made it to the end, Natalie, it makes it to the end, you say, yeah, I made it. That happened to me a couple of times. I thought I was done. I went and looked, and things didn't work at all. So you got to go and try out your activities and resources. If you have willing students, unfortunately, it was spring vacation. I couldn't find anybody who would help me test, so I had to do it myself. But students could make willing content testers if you have them. Yeah, I didn't give up. I'm kind of I'm interested in doing that kind of integration and troubleshooting stuff, so it's kind of fun for me. Actually, it sounds sick of me. I had to say that, I guess, but I got enjoyment out of trying to make it work. And of course, if you have troubles, just follow the steps in copying your database and copying your data directory again, and just point the config.php to the new locations and test it again. I mean, that's the great part about it. That's the great part about having that set up the way I showed you, is that you can test it as many times as you want. Okay, now here's the pain of migration. This is where, see, to me, that first part, it looks really painful, but it's really not. To me, it really wasn't the most painful thing of migration, because, to be honest with you, my site migration is still continuing on. When you finally get to 2.2, as we all know, if you've been studying and following the forums or doing any of that, Moodle 2.2 has a much different way of dealing with files. It's a better way of dealing with files, but it's a different way of dealing with files. So they've given us a kind of transitionary legacy files area for the course, okay? And this allows us to have our courses migrated nicely so that we don't have to do much editing. However, if you want to edit your course and you want to make the modules and the things that in the way Moodle 2.2 is designed to be used, that is with the media files included with each activity, you actually have to go back and edit and re-include all of those files, and it's painful. It's a little bit painful to think about doing, and they're working on making that process better, so so you can hope that with new versions of Moodle, for example 2.3,